episode 24 of my podcast. This is my fortnightly vlog about knitting, crochet, spinning, sewing, macrame, anything else that seems like a good idea at the time. Forgive me, it's the third time I've done this because the cat and the neighbour keep interrupting. So, you can find me on Instagram as Mel Brown Crafting Podcast. You can find me on Ravelry as Funky40. And we have a Ravelry group for this podcast, which you can just join and see what we're talking about on there to do with the episode. If there's anything I speak about today that you want to know more about, generally I will put a link to it in the show notes. So if you click on the link down below, it'll take you across to Ravelry and there will be links to all the patterns and the people and everything else in there. So that's the domestics over with. Let's get started. So, where are they now? What happens to the projects that you saw last time? So, we've got a couple of long-suffering projects that, well, not by some standards, I guess, but my Opus socks are still in hibernation. I haven't had the urge to pick those up yet. And the Memories blanket, I haven't done anything on that. But my Garden Flowers crochet blanket has come on quite a long way. This is a pattern which I pretty much made up myself. It was loosely based on another pattern, but it became looser and looser as it went along. So it's crocheted using scraps of double knit weight yarn that I had in my stash, and most of it's acrylic, but there are odd bits of wool. And then I had quite a lot of, oh now then, I knew what this was because I tried to get some more of it. Red Heart Detroit, which I was using as a border. So let me show you it. Long sufferers, you'll be very familiar with this. If you're new, this is the first time you've seen it. So I made lots and lots of these sort of flower motifs. And then with the Red Heart, I put in, actually this is the wrong side, but never mind. I put in border hexagons to make it look like flowers in the garden. Hence the name Garden Flowers. So this was a bit of didn't really know what it was going to be, and then my second daughter decided she would like it for her birthday as a bed runner, so just to go along the bottom of the bed, just to make it look pretty, potentially to have a little bit of a wrap around her, or if she felt the need, but generally just to put a decorative on the bottom of her bed. So so we have a row of 2 going on to a row of 3, and it carries on down. There's a row of 2 and a row of 3, and then final row of 2 and then final row of 3. So you can see where I've got to. Actually, I can't see when I'm showing you. Just a bit of a shame. So this is where we've got to the final. I'm trying to peek through the holes. The final row of 3. So they're all attached, they just need all their borders on them, and then we're done. And then I just need to put it on the bed and make sure it is the right size. I put it on with these on it a night or two ago and it seems fine. So I had run out of the Red Heart and I couldn't find any other anywhere. The Detroit, they've stopped making it and nobody in this country seems to have it in that colourway. So I'm using this instead. It's obviously, as the name suggests, it's 50%, 55% I think, wool compared to 100% acrylic. So I'll just have to be a bit more careful when I wash the blanket, but that's okay. I don't anticipate throwing it in the wash every week. It's just going to sit on her bed as a runner, so I don't expect it'll be washed more often, once or twice a year really. So that's where it is. Her birthday's mid-March, so I'll have no trouble finishing it by then, but I have decided I'm not going to start any more crochet projects until I've got this finished, because it's been on the go for a long time. How long? I'll put it up here when I started it. So I just really want to get it off my WIPs list, my works in progress list, and onto my finished objects list. So I'll probably crack on with that and finish that before next time I speak to you. Okay, so that's the third current work in progress. So the next project was the exclamation shawl. This is something that I've been doing for quite some time. It's a Tunisian crochet project, and it was for a course that I'm teaching in February at my local yarn shop, which is called Yarn Etc. So I was making it with this Shape Your Swirl and it's in the Sherbet Rainbow colourway. It's 1,000 meters basically, in 60% of cotton and 40% acrylic. And as you may have seen, it's a gradient yarn. So this is finished. So it started at this end with blue, it went through yellow and then pink, and there it is. So it's finished, and my lovely friend Andrea has blocked it for me. So it's done. I haven't worn it because it's not really meant to be for me. I'm going to use it as a demonstration piece for the course next month, and then I'm going to leave it at the yarn shop because we've booked another course for October. So Fee, who runs the shop, will use it, I guess, to promote the next course. But after that, it will probably be mine. So, trying to move this forward a little bit. So like that maybe. The picture on the pattern, I showed you that before. Every week so far, every podcast so far, I've shown you the actual pattern. She kind of has it draped over her shoulders, which makes sense as well. I don't know, it's not a standard shape, so I'm not exactly sure how I would wear it, but I could just do the Stephen West approach, which is just to throw it on. There you go, that works. Actually, that's my favourite yet. So just kind of, yeah, I like that. So it comes down here, yeah, that's fine. Anyway, I'll stop fiddling now. So that's the exclamation shawl, all done and finished. Yeah, it was a long pattern because these stitches are not quick to make, and there's a lot of it. But I got into a real rhythm with it. You probably know if you've watched before, I'm very good at starting projects and I'm really good at finishing them. The bit in between can sometimes be a bit of a slog. And it did feel like a bit of a slog with this because it was such a long project. But I love the way the colour changes go because there's 4 threads, 4 plies in the yarn, and they just change 1 ply at a time. But I got into a real rhythm with it and I really enjoyed it in the end. And now I'm going to teach it, which is going to be fab. So that's all booked up. That's in, I want to say 16th of Feb. So yeah, that's all ready to go. So, what's next? Oh, I forgot to say, I only had 3 grams of yarn left. I played Yarn Chicken and I won. Look at the length of the rows when I was finishing. And it's a 4-row pattern. And after you finish the last 4-row repeat, you then do just a row of half trebles, and then you do a cast off row. So I have 3 grams left. I think that's a massive achievement to have succeeded to that extent at Yarn Chicken. So I had 3 grams of this lovely stuff left, and I have already used part of it in my lefty shawl, which is fabulous. It's lovely having these projects ongoing, which means that little bits that are left don't get left behind. No yarn left behind. Maybe I should call that's what I should call this episode. No yarn left behind. So yeah, that's all good. Echo chamber. If you are doing the mystery crochet along and you don't want to know what's happening with it, don't look now. So it finished, and I finished. It was 5 clues over 5 weeks, and I loved it. So it would have been 3 weeks in when I showed you it last. It is finished. Let me just work out the right side. So here it is. So you've got the square and then the 2 edges, 2 triangles, and then this edging, which is really interesting. This first bit here was it looked a little bit like Tunisian crochet and felt a bit like it. Then there was an interim bit, and then there's this, which actually is Tunisian crochet, although you don't use a Tunisian crochet hook because there's few enough stitches for you not to need it. It's not perfectly executed, as indeed none of my projects are. I don't believe in perfection. I don't see the need for it. Good enough is good enough. But it is really cute and lovely. The yarns I used are all from Yarn Etc. Oops. In fact, I got them for Christmas. So there's beehive yarns in the ordinary base, and the colourway is Rooftop Witches. And then also, I'm just searching desperately. Oh, Fairy Wings. Oh, Fibre Space Fairy Wings is the light blue. Now, I didn't use very much of my yarn at all. I've got 50 grams of this left of the sock yarn, and ooh, I can't remember, this was 50 grams. I can't remember how much this is left. So I'm thinking I'll put some of that in my lefty. Maybe, there's no reason not to do a blanket square with it, is there? There's no reason not to put the rest of that into my blanket. So that won't go to waste. Now this, like 50 grams, if I did heels, toes and cuffs in a different colour, I could probably get a pair of socks out of this. But I've decided that I want to start doing longer socks, so it'd have to be a longer cuff, and a long cuff in a different colour is going to look a bit weird. So I'm not sure about that. Also, there's a podcast viewer called Sarah, and we've been chatting quite a bit, and we're quite close now. Hi Sarah. This is Sarah in Lancashire. I've got lots of Sarah friends. And we are doing a swap of some yarn from our stash, some bits and pieces we bought. We're doing that in April. I think it's April. Yeah. And then we're also going to do an advent calendar for each other. So it would be great to do some minis, a mini for her from this. A 5 gram mini would leave me with still 45 grams, which would be several blanket squares. But I need several blanket squares, so maybe that's what I'll do with it. Don't know. There it is. So it's done, and the best thing about it, oh, what did I do? I used the 5mm hook, which is what it suggested, the pattern suggested. Not exactly common with me, is it? And I have found out what's going to happen to it. I have lots of lovely shawls, and I really don't need any more. And it turns out that my second daughter, whose birthday is in March, really likes it. I'm going to get Andrea to block that. Andrea, who blocked the exclamation shawl for me. She does all my blocking because I'm rubbish at it, and she's great at it, and it gives me an excuse to go and see her. So she's going to block the echo chamber, and it's going to be Lexi's birthday present, along with the blankets. Yeah, you can never give too many hand crocheted gifts for a birthday, can you? So this is really interesting because that's actually the wrong side, which is arguably just as attractive as the right side. It is rather lovely, and it's the fairy wings in particular. I mean, the sock yarn is lovely. It's very, very soft, but it isn't big enough. So Andrew will just block it out a little bit bigger, and yeah, that's nice. So that's the echo chamber, so that's finished as well. Lefty. So the lefty is a Martina Bain pattern. I don't think I said what the echo chamber was. It's the crochet project, Joanne's Grace and Kat. Yeah, that's what that is. So the lefty is a Martina Bain pattern. If you've not done one of hers before, they're fab. So I've made some progress on it. Here it is. So if you haven't seen before, these little petals are made out of leftover sock scraps. 2 long rows and then a little fiddly faddle at the end. So you can use very small scraps, and I'm using a different yarn, or at least a different colour. Oh look, I put a marker in last time I spoke to you. So I've done another 4 petals since I last spoke to you. So it's not an awful lot, and I'll move the marker now. But as you'll be able to see, I have had a bit of a finishing party. I finished an awful lot of stuff. So that's not too bad to have done 4 petals. So I've now got 22, I think. The sample in the pattern has 29. And I have, as well as the scraps, I'm using this cream yarn, is Chester Wool Company. Superwash Merino sock. and I have a second skein of that, and I still have this much left. So I don't know how much of this will take up, but I was with Andrew, and she's a bit of a enabler, and she was saying, oh, keep going, just make it huge. Use the second skein of cream, just make it huge, which is definitely a possibility. I'm just thinking that it sits like this neatly around. How pretty is that? Now if it's massive, I'm wondering that if it's going to lose its kind of delicacy. I mean, that's just so cute, isn't it? And then it comes on round. So I'm thinking that that when I've done the 29, I'll probably look at it and see how it sits. Because, you know, I love big shawls, but it's also really nice to have a little cute thing for the spring. So yeah, I'm going to see how that looks when I've done the 29 or the first ball is finished, whichever is the sooner, and decide at that point whether I want to go for the second ball. But obviously I'm a sock knitter, so I have sock scraps up the wazoo, as they say, somewhere. So I can carry on as long as I want to. So yeah, that's slow progress, but enjoying it. It's my kind of take out of the house project since the exclamation shawl was finished, because that was so easy to grab, you know, didn't have to look at the pattern, knew exactly what I was doing. This is my take out the house project now. Oh, that's a bit dangerous, isn't it? Okay, so that is work in progress number 4. So the last, I think, where are they now, is the Bonbon Rabbit. I had done 1 foot when I last spoke to you, and this is a pattern by Susan Claudino, another person whose patterns I absolutely love. Soft toys without any of the sewing up, absolutely perfect for me. So here she is. Isn't she cute? Little bum. Made a bit of a mistake with her tail. It's not meant to be quite like that, but so there she is. Isn't she lovely? I find them so cute with the big ears. I have made, I think this is the 4th, but I think it's the cutest. They're really, really quick to make up and really easy, no decisions. Even the face, you know where to put the eyes, that's shown to you. And it's fairly clear where to put the little face, little nose. So yeah, really, really lovely pattern, enjoyed that. And the yarn is West Yorkshire Spinner Signature 4-ply. I don't think the colourway has a name, but you know, it's fairly distinctive. So that's all done. And so that's, where are they now? I have 4 works in progress at the moment. Now if you've watched from a while, you'll know that just think before, what was it, sometime last year, I decided to see how low I could go with works in progress, to see how few I could get down to, and still stay sane. I think I got down to the two blankets, memory blanket and the garden flowers. So in order to do that again, I'd have to finish the socks and the lefty. But I don't think that's the plan. In fact, I'll finish the garden flowers first. But I do want to, so yeah, that's what I'm doing to prioritise. I have several ways of prioritising projects. In the main, just on an average day, I'll just pick up whatever project I feel like doing, because the size of it, the craft it is, the mental requirement needed, the visual requirement needed, all those things. But I occasionally, for one reason or another, want to move something on faster than that would naturally create. So either because I have a deadline, or because I just feel like I want to move it on because I've had enough of it, or something like that. And one of the things I do is, what I do with the exclamation shawl was I did 4 rows every day. Sorry about the croaky voice. I've had it for days. I can't get rid of it. So yeah, a little bit every day, goals like that. And then sometimes if it gets really serious, I'll monogamize the project, which means I won't work on anything else apart from that project until it's finished. But that's quite a big step. I wouldn't do that lightly because it's really not me at all. Anyway, why was I rambling about that? Don't know. So, oh yeah, I've got 1 new whip on the block. Now, I think I had just made some yarn and I was rather excited about it when I spoke to you last. I'd got 2 bats of fibre from Spin City at the Knitting and Stitching show. Now it wasn't November just gone because I didn't go. I didn't go the previous year either. So it's at least 1 and a bit years. I think it was, no, at least 2 and a bit years, or possibly even 3. I think it was probably 3 years ago that I bought the 2 bats of fibre from Spin City, who are based, they're in the UK anyway. Lovely lady called Louise. So that is well, what I wanted to do from Spinnery. Let's sort of overlap a bit with Spinnery. Spinnery was my aim to spin every day in January, and at the time of setting that goal and at the time of last speaking to you, I was spinning on a Spin City drop spindle, which I bought at the same time as those 2 bats of fibre, and I also had a braid of undyed fibre that I got from a course I did. So I had hoped that during Spinnery I would be able to finish spinning that bat of undyed yarn fibre. As it turns out, I managed to finish spinning that and the 2 bats that I'd got from Spin City, which I'd had a play with. What I did was I just knitted it into the same project and just kept adding it in until all 3 of those bats stroke braids were finished. I haven't really got the lingo yet for spinning. I don't really know the difference between comb top and bats and braids and roving and all those other things. I don't really get all that yet. I will do, I'm sure. Anyway, so I just kept producing yarn of different quantities, and I just kept putting it into this shawl, which was the Quaker. Oh no, do you know what? When I spoke to you last, I was planning to do a corner to corner cowl, but actually a friend of mine, Adriana, she said crochet uses a lot of yarn. I thought, I want it to go as far as it can, and there was a pattern in my queue called the Quaker Yarn Stretcher Boomerang. Can't remember who it was by, and I decided to give that a go, and oh my goodness, what a pattern. Actually, I don't know why I'm giving you this big build up to something you haven't seen, because I was wearing it when I started the video. Here it is. So it's the first yarn. It's the first yarn I got. It doesn't necessarily mean the first yarn I spun, because of course the first singles you spin are on the bottom of the spindle, and then when you make them into yarn they're on the top, and then you put them on the skein, put them into a skein, and then so they can end up being the top or the first or the last to be used. Does that make sense? Anyway, so this is the Spin City stuff, and I applied it with the cream stuff to try and keep the colours. So then we go down to that, and then we kind of ran out of the cream and we went to applying it with itself. There it is. So that is the Quaker Yarn Stretcher Boomerang. I absolutely love this pattern. It's perfect for hand spun. I used a 10mm knitting needle. It recommended a 6. I started with a 7. I didn't like the fabric, so I didn't have anything between a 7 and a 10, so I put a 10 and it was perfect. So the thing about this is there are so many different ways to wear it. So the standard way for me would be with the bit at the front and then these two, and they're easily long enough to knot if you want to. But there's also other ways, and I just find myself throwing it on sometimes and it just kind of finds another way of looking gorgeous. So I can wrap it around there if I'm just feeling a little bit cold, and then when I feel a bit colder I can throw that over there, and it just seems to find its own way to be worn. And I keep looking at it thinking, oh, I'm wearing it a different way to before. It's lovely. It is just lovely, and the yarn, it just shows off the yarn so beautifully. So you can see it's a fairly obvious design, but how you do the increases and the decreases and everything is just, you know, it's a cheap pattern. It's worth getting. But yeah, absolutely perfect for the hand spun, and that's in fact what it was designed for. Did I say that? So really, really happy with it. Just excited with my progress, really. And there are some bits in here that weren't spun by me. I'll come on to that. What am I doing? Am I doing that next? Yeah. think I am. Okay, so spinnery, the first week or so I was just spinning on my spindle, which was fine. But Gemma from Gemma B Makes podcast had suggested the Weavers, Spinners and Dyers Guild, WSD Guild. She said they met in Bradford once a month, kind of several hours on a Saturday, and she'd gone along there and she'd rented a spinning wheel. And as I got more into spinnery, I thought, I'd quite like to crack on with all this fibre and do some more. So I went to, now not the Bradford because that's a bit far from me, I went to the Craven branch, which is in Skipton, and I met up with all the ladies there, and it was a really lovely day. I took a cake and my spindle and some fibre, and I came away with Wendy the wheel. I rented a spinning wheel. Now, they're an absolutely wonderful bunch of women. I just had to pay to join the organisation, which I did, was 20 quid. And then I could rent this lovely, it's an Ashford traditional, and for £3 a month, which is awesome. So I had a go while I was there, and there was lots of lovely ladies there who were really, really helpful. And then I brought the wheel home, and the following day, this happened. Yeah, kids pick up more than just computer stuff really quickly, don't they? That's my youngest, Annie. So she got really into it as well. In fact, I've said to her now that if you want to do any more spinning, you have to get your own fibre because you can't spin any more of mine. So we span between us all of this lot. So that was the 2 Spin City ones and the undyed one. And then all that was left of that is this ball of singles, which is very, very changeable, as you can see. Oh, that's just the end. But from this, which looks relatively sensible, to this, which looks completely unspun. So, yeah. Don't know what I'm going to do with that. I was trying to ply it with itself through a centre pull ball. So if you don't spin, and I didn't a few months ago, I wouldn't have understood this, but when you spin like this is called a single or singles, and you can knit with that. In fact, this all looks fairly relaxed. I might be able to knit with this, but quite often it's got a lot of spin in it, and it's very energetic, and it's not very strong as well. And you can see in parts that's not going to be terribly strong, is it? So what you tend to do is ply it. So if you've spun your yarn from the fibre clockwise, you then spin anti-clockwise 2 singles or more together to make a yarn. So this is left over, and I was trying to spin the inner centre pull with the outer ball. Now I knit like that all the time, but what you forget is you have time for the ball to rearrange itself. When you're spinning or plying, you don't have that time, so I got in a real mess with it. So I ended up not doing that rest of it. I only need to wind it onto into another ball and do that, but I didn't get around to it, and I finished this off and I didn't need it anymore. So that's all I've got left of that fibre. And then I had a braid from Wheeldale Woolcraft that Linda, my friend, my design partner, had bought for me, given me, and that was 100% BFL. BFL cross. I don't know what that means. Anyway, so it was that, and we spun that, and I think that's what Annie's spinning in the video. Can't remember. Anyway, this is what we made from that. So this is the finished yarn. Experienced spinners say that once you get good, you can't spin this kind of thick and thin stuff. Art yarn, as my friend Andrea calls it. But right now, I sure as hell can. So there it is. It's about 92 grams. So I must have lost a few in the bits and pieces on the floor. Oh, and I've got a little ball of singles here. I was thinking of plying these 2 together, but I think it's going to make a bit of a mess, isn't it? I mean, there are bits where... I don't know. What do you think? Should I apply that with that? Or should I just try and... Do you know what I was thinking? This is actually not too bad. Maybe I could knit that into the lefty. And then, as well as having leftovers from all my lovely projects. I'll even have some hand spun in there. That's a bit irresistible. I might need to do that. And if I can find a better patch. No, I don't think I can do that with this. But I might be able to make something with this. Don't know. I'll have to think about that. So that's all I've got left of the red. And the rest of it is in here. So what would you do with 92 grams of this kind of variable thingy bobs? If I had to put a name on it, I would say chunky. But there are bits that are probably DK or less. And there are bits that are frankly scary. So there's a frankly scary bit. What went on there? I'd like to think that was when Annie was on her shift, but who knows? So yeah, beautiful colours, really, really happy with it. And I might actually put this into stash because, you know, as soon as it was dry, it was knitted. Absolutely, I couldn't, you know, I think there are some people that if you have chocolate in the house, you have to eat it, right? You can't just have it in the house. It's in the house, it's eaten. I think that's the way I was with my first hand spun. If it's dry, it's knitted. Couldn't actually stop myself, and it was such a easy knit as well. It's easy, rememberable, and great big 10mm needles. It was just so adorable as a project. So I actually might get this into stash for 5 minutes. And Linda had given me this, or a little pack of them. How cute is that? So you put the fibre, the colour or the dye, the yarn gauge, which I wouldn't have, well, I've just had to guess that, haven't I? The length, don't know. The weight, or do know that, and the wraps per inch. I could work that out. Yeah, it's cute, isn't it? So I might actually attach that layer and put it in my stash like it's a proper yarn. Ooh, very exciting. So, yeah, that's spinnery. No, I have done something else as well. So all I have left in my stash of fibre now is 2 lots from the threshing barn. This is a place out of Reeth in North Yorkshire, a beautiful place, lovely lady who runs it. We took a team trip out there in the summer. So this one, blended merino, 100 grams, and it is soft like kittens. Yeah, that's a really good representation of the colour. Annie was sat here last night just rubbing it against her face. I am not very good at separating these colours. It's all a bit of a mishmash. But I did just see a video about folding it and then doing it. So you fold it every finger and then you do it like that, and it just, that might help me to separate the colours, because at the moment the fibre, if I can put in a photo here, the fibre the singles I've made with it are kind of stripy, like barbershop pole, which is fine, but this is one ply, and when I ply it with another one, there's going to be another one. So it's going to be barbershop pole over barbershop pole, or marl if you prefer, which isn't going to look terribly good. So I need to have an experiment with that folding thingy-me-bob. But it's beautiful, and I'm really enjoying spinning it, and I'm not letting Annie get her hands on it. She's mean, I know, but you know, a girl's got to keep her special stuff. So after that, I've got another skein. It's a darkish purple, and it's merino and silk. After that, I haven't got any more. So, you know, I'd said I was going to knit from stash for 6 months. Well, I'm absolutely committed to that, but I'm not going to spin from stash, because with the rate I'm going, I'll almost certainly have finished that fibre by the end of January. And then I've got 100 grams left. I cannot make 100 grams last 5 months, because I'll lose my skills, and I'm not interested in doing that. So I'm thinking the best way to do that is to actually buy some undyed fibre. I've got lots of dyes. I've got Kool-Aid. I've got some lovely food colourings, and I've actually got some acid dyes as well. No, I haven't sourced a pot to use them for yet, but I can dye some fibre, and then I can make my own self-striping, because self-striping yarn is actually quite difficult to dye. But self-striping fibre is much easier, because if I just get, say, 3 batches and dye them in 3 different colours, and then I can spin a chunk of colour A, then spin a chunk of colour B, then spin a chunk of colour C. The problem is, if you're plying them, How do you keep those colours? Answers on a postcard for those of you that are old enough to remember that. I guess, I don't know. So I guess we'll just work that out as we go along. But anyway, that's the plan. So I'll buy some undyed fibre and dye it and then spin it. Because, you know when you're wearing something that you've made and you're walking around with it and you're like, I made this. And people say, oh, that's lovely, where'd you get it from? And I say, I made it. Well, when I can say, I made it and I spun it myself. Or when, like the socks I'm wearing right now. There's got big hair there. I can say, I made it and I dyed it myself. So when I can say, I dyed it and I spun it and I knitted it myself, I still feel very, very happy. Then, of course, I've got to start thinking about fibre and sheep and fleeces and all that kind of stuff, going further and further back, but I'm not ready for that yet. So, basically, I'm going to have to buy some more fibre, but that's okay. That will actually add to my yarn stash, won't it, while I'm knitting from the other stash. Anyway, so, is that all about spinnery? I have loved it. Like I was saying earlier about focusing on something, that's another way of doing it, is to just do a little bit of something every day, even if it's not very much, because once you get started, once I get started, I won't speak for you, it's unlikely I'll just do a tiny bit. It's the inertia of, oh, I've got to get sat down and get the stuff out. But yesterday I found a really good trick. I spent ages transferring videos from my phone to my laptop, particularly these videos on a Tuesday when I do the podcast, but also I transfer any photos and videos of the family onto, we've got a hard drive, and then I'm going to make a family video for them at the end of the month this year. That's one of my new things for this year. But just transferring those photos and videos takes ages, and I've got to be there, excuse me, because often it doesn't work and I've got to unplug it, replug it in and whatever, and if I leave it for 5 minutes and all that time is wasted. But if it is working, then I'm sat there just looking at a screen. And I've tried knitting before, but you lose your rhythm with it. But spinning works really well. So I've got the wheel beside me. I plug it in, I get sorted, turn to the side, do a bit of spinning, come back. So that's really made sense of some of the wasted time I've got. But the thing I was saying was that once I get started with spinning, I'm likely to do quite a bit, or whatever I fancy, but it's just getting over the inertia, and that sort of commitment to spin every day has worked. Actually, there have been 3 days, I think, when I didn't spin, but I have more than made up for it on the days that I did, and it's done its job. It's got spinning to be a part of my everyday plan. And the spinning wheel is a bit like the piano. It just sits there in the room, and when I walk through on my way from doing something to doing something else, I think, oh, I'll just sit down and do it. So it's definitely there. So I've got this rented one, and I want my own. So I've asked at the spinning group if any of them know of someone who's selling one secondhand and wants it to go to a new, careful, loving home. I need to do a little bit of servicing on the one I've borrowed, actually, because the poor thing, it's been in a cupboard in a bag for months. And before that, it's been serially owned by borrowers, not tiny people, but people who don't own it. And I think it's like hire cars, you treat something differently when you own it, don't you? So I don't think it's had the love and attention that an owned wheel would have. So I just thought I'd give it a quick service. I've looked at a video and I needed to get some oil. Dave's found me some oil, so I'm going to oil all the bits and pieces and just give it a little bit of love before I give it back. But I'm hoping, I've hired it for, well, I've said I need it for 2 months because I'm not going to the meeting next month, because that's the day that I'm teaching the exclamation shawl course. I'm hoping that when I go back in 2 months' time, I will have found another one and I can give them theirs back with gratitude, and hopefully it'll be a nicer wheel, than in better condition than when I got it. Although, you know, don't get me wrong, it's in great condition. It's working absolutely great. Just needs a little bit of oil and a little bit of care. So, that's spinnery. I've got a little bit of something new. This is not stash, but I'm going to see if I can show you these, or whether, sorry about the crinkling, whether it's going to be too shiny. Oh, that's good. made, oh, can you see them? I don't know. Made by Mel with love. Little buttons. I've always liked the idea of the little labels that you can sew onto things, but you know, sewing, it's not my strong suit. So I just thought I'd get those. They're from Funky Lime. And if you have me on Instagram, you'll have seen the way they came packaged. Absolutely beautiful. So they're in green, lime green tissue paper. And there was a little wrapped around thing which had a little rainbow thing. What's it made out of? I don't know. Some kind of, I don't know. And it said thank you. It's absolutely gorgeous. Really lovely. So Funky Lime, you can get them on Instagram or you can find them online. I'll put links in the show notes. Really, really good. 30p per button. Custom made. And she's really, really careful as well. She finds out exactly what you want. She makes up a sample and you can see a picture of it to make sure the font looks how you want it. Absolutely brilliant. Really would recommend her. She's fab. Right. Something new I've done. Oh yeah, I had a finishing party. Everything that was not finished, I wanted to get finished. Now, do you remember, you long sufferers? Do you remember? Ooh. This. So this was my 365 project. It was meant to be a year's project that you put a button or a piece of embroidery on every day for a year. Now we started it sometime in January and there's a few of us who did it and I just it dropped off my radar. I picked it up again at the end of the year, did a few more bits and I thought, nah, I'm done. So I have just very clumsily sewn up the edges and then I'm just going to literally hang it on the wall. The only thing that makes it, you can tell which way up is because of the hump here. So that is going to go on the wall as it is. My sister-in-law and one of her friends and another friend, it's about 5 of us in the end who did it. Anybody else finish theirs? It's lovely, isn't it? I'll also put a link to the original project that inspired it. And also something else has been hanging around for a while. Remember the macrame table runner? I was making it and I made it into a rainbow one and it was too beautiful to put on the table and put dishes on. So I started another one and I decided to finish that this week. It's been hung up on the stairs. So every time I pass down on the stairs I can do a bit of macrame film, which is lovely. But I've decided it's time to finish it. So here it is. Very, very simple. Square knot diamonds. 4 of them. There it is. So it's going to get its inaugural use tonight. I wasn't going to use it until you'd seen it. But there it is. On reflection, I would have liked to have put a knot here maybe. Just to kind of save this. It's a knot there maybe, or maybe 2 knots and 1, I don't know. But by the time I thought that, I'd already gone past the first one. And of course you can't retrospectively add the knots, so there it is, the table runner. That's finished too. So I feel like just sweeping through everything and tidying everything up. Right, what else have I got? So I showed you this book by Tilly and the Buttons. Tilly Warnes, is it? Warnes. And I wanted to start on that, which I did, and I made the first project, which is a headscarf. Is that what they call it? Yeah. It's a really, really simple pattern, just to give you an example of just using. I mean, I do make the bags with the sewing machine, but I need to go back to the beginning and get everything right. So it's just a simple headscarf. I've got a picture of my daughter wearing it here. And yeah, that's that done. The next project, I said to you last time that a lot of the patterns in there are really not patterns that would suit me with my figure, and the next project is pyjamas. So let me just see if I can show you a picture of the pyjamas. One does not want to be shown right now. Sorry. So it's just the pyjama bottoms, which are gathered. I can't really find a pattern or picture of them. So pyjama bottoms. If I find a picture, I'll put it in here. And I don't wear pyjama bottoms. I don't like to have anything on my legs at night. So my second daughter, she seems to be getting everything at the moment, although the first daughter got this and the third daughter is getting this. It does even out over the time. So the second daughter would like a pair of pyjamas, so, or the bottoms, I think we do the top later. So she's going to get those. And I just need to find some fabric. Again, this concept of knitting from stash, I would hope not to buy fabric as well. But if I'm going to work through this pattern book, I need to have the fabric for it. And it's no use making something out of a fabric that isn't ideal for it or isn't liked by the intended recipient, because there's no point making something that's not going to be worn. So I need to try and find some fabric in my extensive old and varied yarns fabric stash to see if there's find something in there that I've got enough of to make these trousers and that my daughter actually likes. So that's the challenge. If I can, then I'll go ahead and do that. That's my next one. Okay, so in other news, what's happening? I told you last time I started getting up at 5 AM every day. That's still happening. Might be in my 4th week. And it's going really, really well. It's working for me. It's helping me to sleep. I sleep much better at night. And I've got a much better routine. I do occasionally mess myself up by watching spinning videos just before bed. It gets me too excited and I have spinning dreams. But generally I'm not crafting in my bedroom anymore, which means the weekend's really awesome. So at 5 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday or a Sunday, I come down here. This is my den. And I've got my blankets and I've got usually a couple of cats. And I've got, let's say everybody else gets up at 9 or 10. I've got 4 or 5 hours uninterrupted to sit and craft. Last weekend didn't work so well because I had a really bad headache and I ended up taking meds, which meant I slept a lot of that time, which wasn't ideal. But I think I was fibre on my nose. So otherwise, it's absolutely brilliant. Works really well, keep me on track. And after tea, I sort of craft from 7 till 9, and then at 9 o'clock, I just lock up, switch off if Dave's not here, go up to bed. And then I just read or watch videos if I'm too tired to read, and no crafting. And then I sleep before 10, and I'm up at 5. So it's great, really, really good. Looking at the mess around me, I think I've told you everything. So, thank you if you've got right to the end here. Well done. If you're new and you like it, do please subscribe. And if you want to know when there's a next video up, then you can hit the little red bell and that'll tell you when there's a new one. And if you liked the video, please click like as well. If there's anything else that's interested you, have a look at the link below. Go straight over to Ravelry, click on any patterns and whatever. If you want to comment on something I've said, then feel free to comment below or on the Ravelry thread for this episode, or indeed PM me on Ravelry. That's fine, any way you want to get in touch. I do love people getting in touch and having a chat about what we've talked about. So, we're all done. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Happy crafting. I'll see you then. Bye.